So for me, the Montblanc 149 is the one fountain pen that just threads through my whole collection, knitting it all together. Whenever I'm looking for some extra inspiration, I find myself drawn to that absolutely beautiful two-tone gold nib. It's just a fantastic writer in every sense. So my name is Hemingway Jones. Welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to share with you my top 5 most posh fountain pens. Let's dive into it. As I began about the Montblanc 149, this pen I've had for well over a decade, and at some point it was aspirational to me where I just really wanted to experience that pen, having heard a lot about it, having seen it and how beautiful it was, and just wanting to try that incredible gold nib. And when I received it as a gift from my wife, I was not disappointed. In fact, it was such a fantastic pen for me, and I resonated with it so much that there was a period of time when it was almost my only pen, and I used few others, and I actually pared down my whole collection to, I think, under 10 pens at that time, which is extraordinary. But there's a reason for this. The piston fill holds quite a bit of ink. The nib is just so smooth and elegant, and it's such a great writer. And if you're buying a lot of pens and you have some issues, and we know that some pen companies have some QC issues, and you have false starts or skipping, it's very discouraging, especially when you're trying to write, you're trying to create, you're trying to journal and get out the essence of who you are on your journaling page, and suddenly a pen you're using just doesn't work for you. It's really a problem. The Montblanc never lets me down. It is 100% reliable and just an absolute brilliant and an expressive writer. And the joy I have in using this pen is really unparalleled in my collection. I just go back to it again and again. It's absolutely brilliant, and it's one of my poshest pens. So now we're going to transition from Germany to Italy, and Florence specifically, to the Visconti Homo Sapiens. So this pen was just beyond the edge of my geography. I had heard so much about it, and I heard that it was an extraordinary pen, but I never tried it, and I was so curious, and my wife bought it for me for Christmas last year, and I was absolutely delighted with it. This pen has some very interesting features, not the least of which is a resin that contains some of the volcanic materials from Mount Etna in Sicily that actually gives you a piece of Italy within this fountain pen. It's supposed to be virtually indestructible, but I've never put that to a test, and I don't intend to. And it has this incredible power fill system that's just brilliant for filling it, and the quick lock system on the cap is brilliant as well. It's really found a nice middle ground between a screw cap and a snap cap so that you can use this pen actively during the day. If you want to take quick notes, it's easy to do that. And yet this pen is luxurious in every way, from materials to its absolutely beautiful and brilliantly smooth nib. Though check with your pen seller and make sure you get a good one. But it is absolutely fantastic, interesting in design. I love the Visconti clip and how it mirrors the gentle arch of Ponte Vecchio in Florence. It's just a beautiful little nod to its hometown. So this pen is very much deserving of its elite status. It is fantastic to use and an absolute joy. So I think there's going to be quite a few Montblanc pens on this list. I suppose I am a bit of a Montblanc fanboy, but there is a reason for this. A lot of pens just aren't reliable, and I've had extraordinarily good luck with Montblanc. So I feel like I'm paying for that. I'm paying for the ability to be able to write with it and enjoy it whenever I want without doing any work to the nib or anything else. Now, there's a lot of other reasons too, and especially with this pen. This, as you know, is one of my favorite pens, and this is the Montblanc Mania, the absolutely interesting and almost bizarre fountain pen that they put out about 3 years ago that has many unique features. It has a faceted body, it's still a piston fill system, but it's a very elegant and smaller pen because it's designed in a manner that's closer to how their original pens were back in the early part of the last century. It also features some really interesting nods to Egyptian history, including the hieroglyphics on the cap that say basically Mont Blanc, and the sacred scarab on the clip, and the coin-edged round Montblanc stylized logo on the cap. So everything about this is very refined, very beautiful. It's very shiny. The faceted edges reflect light like polished obsidian. It's a beautiful effect. Now, one of the great surprises about this pen is as you uncap it, it reveals maybe the most beautiful fountain pen nib I've ever seen. It has a sacred scarab embossed on it. It has a triangular, maybe the profile of a pyramid, breathing hole, and it has this softness, this almost indulgent softness to the nib that makes the experience of writing with this pen an absolute joy. This nib is also very smooth and very expressive. I adore this pen. I don't even think of it as a luxury item. To me, it's just my Egyptomania. I think more about the associations of Egyptian history and all the mystery and heritage that goes along with that. But nevertheless, this is truly one of my most interesting and most posh fountain pens. Maybe the only thing better than a posh fountain pen is one with an interesting story. And for me, this is the case with the Cartier Diabo. So this fountain pen was actually on blowout at Levenger years ago, probably 15 plus years ago, maybe longer. And they were getting rid of all their non-Levenger branded fountain pens, and they put this at 80% off. So I was able to pick up this incredible fountain pen for $200. And this pen is probably the essence of luxury without going over the line of bad taste. So it's made out of many layers of Chinese lacquer, which give it this beautiful burgundy finish with lovely depth, lovely reflective qualities. It's an incredibly beautiful pen. It's also a bit heavy. It's done on a brass base, so it has some heft to it. The cap is crowned with a ruby cabochon, but absolutely beautiful, kind of dark, mysterious looking ruby at the end. Rings of gold surround it, and the cap has a very discreet C for Cartier on it. As you unscrew this pen, it reveals a beautiful gold nib that looks suspiciously like a Montblanc nib. But yeah, that's for another day, that story. But nevertheless, the decorative quality of this pen, the writing experience. Now, a downside is it's a converter pen, and for about $1,000, I think you'd probably expect it to have a piston fill system. But nevertheless, it's the decorative quality of this pen, the Chinese lacquer, the gold finish, and that beautiful nib. It is really a tasteful, elegant, magnificent pen that's just a joy to write with. So it's absolutely a joy for me to have it, and it's just a great part of my collection. Let's cross over the English Channel and speak about a fountain pen that is truly a luxury experience from ordering it to receiving it. This is the Conway Stewart Churchill Honey Noir Lever Fill fountain pen. So why am I saying it's so luxurious? Well, mostly because you can choose whatever you like on this pen. Conway Stewart makes each of these pens bespoke once you order it. So it's definitely made for you. That's a nice touch. this pen is also fitting in the theme of many of my other pens. I think you can see I really love anything that ties back to history, that looks as if it were made many years ago. And this pen truly looks like a pen from the 1930s. The lever fill system is another callback to those days. It's very rare in a modern pen. A lot of people don't like them. They can burp sometimes, and occasionally you need to get the sack replaced. But for me, that's a small trade-off for a brilliant pen that just feels like it belongs on the desk of someone from the 1930s. It's also made of absolutely beautiful material. This tortoiseshell look to it is absolutely brilliant. The fit and finish of this pen is incredible. Now, it has a Jowo gold nib, but it's been custom tuned by John Serracott. So you know that someone has reviewed it and tried it before you had it and has tuned it to perfection. This pen never lets me down. It's an absolutely brilliant and consistent writer. This pen feels incredible in my hand. I love the dimensions. I love the look, and it just feels like an incredibly luxurious, sweet, smooth writing pen. Absolutely brilliant. Let's put our attention back on Montblanc, my beloved Montblanc 146. This was a pen I had to wait for over a year before I could find one. It was very tough to track down this calligraphy nib. They do go out of stock quickly, and you really have to make sure your timing is perfect. But I hunted it down, I found it, and it started this whole story, really. I was initially very disappointed in this pen. Not in the fit and the finish, but just in how that calligraphy nib worked. Not being a calligrapher myself, I was expecting a much softer nib that was closer to a wet noodle on something like a Waterman 5 or Waterman 52, and it's not that. It's a very specific tool meant for modern calligraphy. So it has incredible line variation, and it goes from thin to fat, but it's very much stiffer, but it bounces back quickly to give you that technique. So once I realized this, and once I learned a few calligraphy techniques, I was able to use this pen much better and to really appreciate what it could do.
Yes, I understand its power now.
But on a pure luxury point of view, this calligraphy nib is an absolute thing of beauty, polished gold, lovely little differentiation of calligraphy on it with the little swirls. I love that. The body of a 146 is about perfect. I think the dimensions of this pen are probably the perfect size and feel for me. So every time I pick it up, it's just so comfortable. It's like sinking into a beautiful leather couch or something. It's just absolutely beautiful in that regard. So I love this pen more, I think, for how difficult my story was with it. The fact that I really had to learn how to appreciate what this pen could do, how brilliant that nib actually is. But for casual writing, I usually use it as an extra fine, which is how it works unflexed. So it is an incredible pen, beautifully made, beautifully crafted, and it certainly deserves a position on this list. Our next choice is a fountain pen from Torino in Italy, and this is the Aurora Optima O Sole Mio, a pen I actually bought for the channel to do some videos on, and now it's almost a year later and I still haven't done any, but that's how it goes. But this pen is beautiful. This pen is orange and black, almost over that edge of good taste. But I love it. I love the slightly obnoxious quality of this pen. My wife says it sort of looks like Versace in the 1990s. I like that reference. But it also has this sort of summer on the coast of Amalfi feel to it. You know, limoncello and beautiful Greek key decoration. It's just really an interesting, fun, sunshiny pen. But it's also fitting in with a lot of my other pens in that it harkens back to how pens were made in the 30s. It has this vintage feel to it. The piston fill system is great on this pen. It also has a really great ink window. One of the things I love about this pen is when I clean it, the ink window is perfectly clear, so it does a great job of flushing ink out of it. I love that. It also has an ebonite feed, which is brilliant. Definitely harkens back to older pens. And the whole section comes out, the feed and the nib, so you can clean it really well. That's a nice touch too. But it also has this beautiful 14 karat gold nib that's very smooth and expressive, but it's just a joy. It's fun to write with. Now, this is one of those pens that I had to floss the nib to spread the tines a bit to get the ink flowing when I first got it, but after doing so, it's been an absolute joy. And each time I pull it out of my collection, it's like the sun rising, so much brightness, so much color, and it's just a beautiful, luxurious feeling to write with this incredible pen from Aurora. Now we have one more pen to get through, and then I'll tell you which one of all of these is my absolute favorite. Okay, so this next pen is my recent Grail purchase. It's a pen that I saw and I just was so enamored with, but it's no longer made. So I had to track down a nice example of it. One that I felt comfortable in purchasing and I felt as if I'd be okay if it needed a little work. And this is the Montblanc Bem Rouge with the gorgeous Paramount cut synthetic ruby on the clip. It's definitely luxurious. It's mostly tasteful, but that's kind of part of what I like about it. I do like things that are slightly over the line of good taste. I do adore this pen though because of the really interesting mechanism, how you uncap it and there's no nib there. It's quite a surprise, even if you're expecting it. And then you post it by screwing it on the back, and that activates a mechanism that then rotates out the nib. And then there's this beautiful soft spot that it settles into that lines up the clip with the nib, and you're ready to write. And that's just one of the surprises of this incredible luxurious pen. Another is that the back is like a little hinge, and you can snap it open, turn the back, and it will eject the cartridge that's inside. Now this pen only takes cartridges, but to me that's a plus because I like to try different inks and I simply refill the cartridge with a different ink. And I usually clean it, but not always. And I'm going to explain that sometime soon. So one thing to keep in mind with this pen though is it does have this mechanism. So you want to be very careful with cleaning it. This isn't one you want to immerse in water or just squirt water through it like you might some other pens. You want to use a bulb syringe or some other cleaning method to get water right behind the feed to flush it through if you feel the need to clean it. Frankly, I think we all clean our pens a little too much, but I'll set that aside for now. So there's also another really interesting surprise with this pen, and that is that the end, the grip section, unscrews from the rest of the pen to make it easier to clean around the nib. And usually disassembling Montblancs is not that easy, so that's a nice touch. So I absolutely adore how this pen is complicated, how it's like a little puzzle box, how expressive and beautiful it is to write with, how you get flashes of red light off that Paramount cut ruby, and the little gold accents and everything else. Everything about this pen is elegant and beautiful. Okay, so now we have all these pens and I'm supposed to pick a favorite because I feel like I have to. You got through this whole video. I need to give you my opinion. It's very difficult. And I would say that the three contenders are, it's hard to even get it down to three contenders. Probably the Montblanc Bem, but I'm so enamored with it right now. So that's a lot of the reason why. There's a lot of excitement because it's a recent purchase. The Montblanc 149, I don't think I could part with that pen. It means so much to me. The Montblanc Egyptomania too is probably my favorite pen, bar none. And both the 149 and the Egyptomania were gifts from my wife. So how do I choose? How do I choose? Well, if I had to, I'm going with the Egyptomania. It's just so strange and so interesting. And I feel like a 149 could be had. You can find those. So I'm going with the Egyptomania, but you can see my struggle. So what do you think? What do you think of my Posh pens? It's funny, I never really intended to buy luxurious pens. I always put the line at about $1,000 that I won't go beyond. And I really only want to buy those sorts of pens very, very rarely. And to really luxuriate in them, get to know them and enjoy them for a long time before I buy another one. So that's my strategy. I don't want to have too many precious things. Fountain pens are tools, after all, for me to journal and for my self-expression. Nevertheless, I have these pens. I absolutely adore them. Which one is your favorite? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you've reached this point, please subscribe. I'd love to have you along on this journey with us. And if you'd like to support the channel even more, membership is available. Come on behind the scenes and see what's going on there. So I make new videos all the time, and I have a live show each Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So I can promise you we will see each other again very, very soon, further up the road. So take care.